Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, Jam Potter here. Welcome to my channel where I talk about books and bookish things, and today I have an update on the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge. If you're not familiar, I will link the first video I did on this one up above, but essentially it's the character Rory Gilmore from the show Gilmore Girls, which was on the WB and the CW in the 2000s and 2010s. The character Rory Gilmore was never seen without a book on the show, basically, and the challenge is to read every book that she read. I'm not putting a time limit on this for myself. This is just purely as I find these books at my library or a used bookstore or wherever. I pick them up, I read them, and I move on with my life. So, let's get into it. So, like I said, the character was never seen without a book, so there are hundreds of books on this list. I have completed, I'm not counting DNF, I have to finish the book to get credit for it, and so I've completed 71 books. One of these was on my DNF list, but then I realized it was on the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge, so I went back and finished it. Ugh. So I am counting it as a DNF because originally I wrote it down on my DNF list for the year and I finished it almost against my will. So I'm not counting it towards my total reading count that I did this year because I feel like I read it under duress and it doesn't count. But these are the 6 books that I read out of that 71 this year, and they are in alphabetical order because that's just the way the list is organized. And so coming in, we have A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. This one came out in 1962, and it's interesting. I did a review of it earlier this month, and it is an utterly fascinating and sickeningly palatable book. It is absolutely grotesque in the way that it makes you root for and empathize with the main character. That being said, I did give it 5 stars. I don't know that I would read it again. I got this one from my local library as an audiobook, and it was interesting. It was fascinating. It challenged my worldview a little bit. It made me see the importance of rebellion and going your own way, and yeah, absolutely brilliant book. I'm glad I read it. Like I said, I don't know if I would read it again. Then we have The Da Vinci Code. This is the one that I finished under duress. This is the one that I originally DNF'd because I got halfway through the book and I'm like, nothing is happening. It's a thriller and it feels like there's no stakes. They're like, we need to do this. So they did. We need to do this. So they did. That it's very... I don't know if your parents are of an age where they made you read the Dick and Jane books when you were a kid. This is Dick's dog Spot. Spot has spots. Run, Spot, run. Like, it was written like that, but for adults. And it just... I don't like thrillers usually because they're very fast-paced, and fast-paced writing with most thriller writers tends to mean lots of plot holes. So, I didn't particularly enjoy this one. I finished it under duress. I did finish it. I'm not counting it towards my reading goal because I don't want credit for this book. I'll take it on the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge credit, but I don't want credit for reading it because I finished it under duress. I didn't want to. I would like that memory space in my brain back, please. Then we have Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, and this one surprised me. That I'd heard of it, and I'd heard that it's one of those books that'll change your life, which usually those books are underwhelming at best. But I thought I'd give it a try because it popped up as an available audiobook on my Libby app through my local library, and it was fascinating. It's a take on Faust, the Faustian bargain with the devil. Our main character doesn't make the bet. He is on a journey to meet the person who made the bet. Who made, not the bet, but the deal with the devil. And it's absolutely fascinating. It goes over racial conflicts in a way that was probably palatable to people at the time. I did have a little bit of trouble with it because it does use the N-word, but it uses it with a purpose that you can tell the author doesn't agree with the use of this word, because it's only reserved for people of color of a certain class. That there's different classes to the African people, and this one is used for the lowest of the low, and it's very interesting. It was a good book. It was well written. It was a fast read, and again, I don't think I would read it again, but I did find it interesting and at times enjoyable. So then we have the Iliad. The version I read was the version that was translated. The version of the Iliad is the new translation by Emily Wilson. She translated it and did, I think, a fantastic job. I had read it previously, but I wanted to read her translation of it because she didn't use the same types of gendered speech and gendered language that are prevalent in other translations of it. And so I thought that was interesting. It's a good story. It's a gripping story. It's a fascinating story. Very gay because it's Greek. But yeah, it's the Iliad. It is what it is. Then we have Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. This one is a book about a Brahmin coming to enlightenment, and it's written by a German man who is fascinated with transcendentalism and Buddhism, and wrote this story as an allegory for finding peace. And it was very interesting. The one I read is a translation because my German isn't good enough for me to read it in the original German, but it was very good. I very much enjoyed it. This is one I read that I read through the Libby app. This is one that I would track down and read again on purpose because it was good. It was gripping, it was fascinating, it was well written, the characters were well rounded, which this book came out in, let me see here, I've got my Goodreads pulled up. This book was first published in English in 1922, or maybe that was when it was originally published in German. I can't remember which, but it came out in 1922 is when the book was written, I believe. I believe it was translated later. But it's very interesting. It's very well-rounded characters, which is something you don't see for books of that age a lot. So I very much enjoyed Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And like I said, I would read it again. I would track down a copy and read it again. I haven't seen a copy, but I haven't really looked that hard because I'm kind of on a no-buying book phase right now. It's not going well. It's not going well, but I'm not just buying books to buy books, so I guess that's something. And then lastly, we have Tuesdays with Morrie by, I believe it's Mitch Albom. And this one I had heard for years and years and years that it's just so beautiful, it's so moving, and maybe I'm dead inside, but I didn't feel anything except that I was being manipulated. It felt like it was a ploy to manipulate my feelings and my emotions and try and wring something out of me in a very artificial way. That being said, Morrie, I love the character of Morrie. Like, I say character, but he was a real person. But I love the way he's portrayed in the book. But the writer, the narrator, Mitch Albom, I cannot stand. Like, he is not someone I would be friends with. He is not someone that I would want to know. He also wrote The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which I've heard is even more schlocky than Tuesdays with Morrie. I haven't heard it called that in those terms. This is my words. But I felt like he was trying to manipulate me into crying as I was reading it, because it's this man and it's the last lecture this professor gives. And it left me cold. I didn't feel anything. It was kind of like that bit in a chorus line. Fun tangential fact, trace back to the Gilmore Girls, because Kelly Bishop originated my favorite part in my favorite musical, which is the chorus line, which is Sheila. But one of the characters, her song is, "And I felt nothing." And that's how I felt with this book. I felt nothing. And so, I don't know if that's a problem with me, or a problem with the book, or a problem with the circumstance under which I read. I don't know. But this book was thoroughly disappointing and thoroughly unenjoyable. So, those are the 6 books I read this year on the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge. I will keep you updated, again, as I read more books. But I'd love to hear what sort of reading challenges y'all are participating in, what sort of books you're reading, what books thrilled and excited you, what books surprised you. More importantly, what books disappointed you? What books did you read where you felt like it was a manipulative cash grab by the author? I would love to hear the books that you didn't like. Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.